it did exactly what I wanted it to do, and it was just to have women feel like they could just, I don't have to, get on this hamster wheel trying to chase money and success, because it actually doesn't really matter if I'm not actually happy inside.
Hello and welcome. I'm Elizabeth Formosa, the founder of Fashion Equipped and devourer of all things fashion, business and mindset. In this podcast, I'm speaking with thought leaders, change makers and entrepreneurs about the business side of fashion and everything in between. Fashion Business Mindset is your front row seat to real stories from designers, brands, entrepreneurs, makers and mentors. We'll discuss how to launch and grow a fashion business and give you insider access to the future of fashion. So let's do this together and ensure that you're equipped to make the fashion business your business. Erin, welcome to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast.
Oh, thanks, Liz, for having me on. I'm excited.
I know, me too. We finally made it happen.
We finally did. I know. I feel like this has been such a long time coming. It's almost like, wow, we're actually doing it.
Good things come to those who wait. Now, congratulations on the launch of your book.
Thank you.
Read it.
Thank you.
Loved it.
Oh, I'm glad.
Now, for those who haven't read the book yet, why the title Hanging by a Thread?
Yes. I mean, it was kind of a play on, I guess, the fashion industry through a kind of like, that was quite the literal translation of it, that it was, working in that space, and it was really just a play on words. But it really, to me, it really was kind of encapsulated how I was doing mentally through and emotionally through the majority of the Triangl experience, to be honest. I didn't know what I was doing. I was genuinely hanging by a thread at many, many, many times. And it was funny because I found myself saying that quite a lot in the lead up to writing the book, even well before we decided on a name. And then when we decided on a name, my publisher and I worked on it together. I was just like, oh, that's perfect. That's like exactly how I felt. So that was it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it encapsulates it beautifully.
Thank you.
I was enthralled throughout the entire read. I just can't believe what you went through. It was, for you to pull back the curtain and share that story. I could see it was a very vulnerable kind of experience for you, and no doubt you would have had to be, brave at times. You shared a lot.
I did.
What inspired you to write the book and share the real and raw side of growing such a successful brand?
Yeah. So when I first moved back to Australia after Triangl, and I was very much, no one knew the story. Everyone just knew of this hugely successful business story. And so I was this sort of, put on a pedestal of like incredible entrepreneur. So I moved back to Australia. I was really hanging on to that. I didn't want to let anyone know what actually had been going on and what was still going on. And then I sat down with an old friend of mine, Hugh Van Cuylenberg from the Resilience Project and from the Incredible Imperfects podcast. And he was the first one. He said to me, Erin, you've got to, and I told him the story, everything that I went through mentally and just the whole bit. And he said, you've got to write a book. Erin, you've got to write a book. And that was the first time anyone had ever said that. And that was a good 4 years before I actually started to write the book, but it was always there. But the thing is, I was still on that journey very much. And I even write about that chapter in the book. Like I wasn't in a place at all where I was ready to write it. I was still going through it. I was still only just about to start healing from it all, essentially, and go and do that self-development work. So when I was, doing that consistently for a number of years, I went through the pandemic. I had 2 more children. Life just was very busy. And then it was not last year, but the year before, it was near the end of 2022. And I'd been telling my story for a while by now. And what I found is that everyone wanted to work with me on a professional basis, and they wanted to know how to have a successful business. They wanted to know how to grow really quickly. They wanted to know how to make a lot of money, really simple stuff. But then when I sat down with these women, and it was always women, it always ended up being about a personal story. Founders, especially female founders, always had so much more going on than just this surface level business situation that they wanted help with. And so it was like my duty to be honest with them about what I went through, because I couldn't sit there and talk I get not down to them, but talk sort of at all these women in a way of like, I made it, I've arrived, I'm amazing, be like me, do this, which I saw a lot of people in in positions similar to mine doing. It was like, I'll tell you how to be successful, I'll tell you how to make money, I'll tell you how to do this. And I was like, no, I want to tell you how bad it can be and how hard it was and how impossible it felt at times to be not only succeeding, but being, faced with all the challenges whilst you're succeeding. So when that was happening in this advisory mentoring role that I was sort of moving into, it just very naturally kind of came about to go, well, why don't I write this whole story, get it out to way more women than I possibly could doing any sort of one-on-one or group coaching or whatever it was, and also reach women that might not be founders, might not be entrepreneurs. This might be women that are ambitious, women that are, just like not just mothers, but mothers and any female. Yeah. Because there were bits in that story that I think so much of my journey along the way is relatable to so many women at different points in their lives. So that is really, I just wanted to write it so women felt less alone.
Yes.
And felt like I didn't want anyone to look at me and think, God, if only I had that life. Because it was a really challenging period for me when I had that life, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I really enjoyed, if I could put it that way, about the book. It was, we always hear the highlight reel.
Yeah.
And you talk about the highlight reel a lot.
Yeah.
But we very, very rarely talk about the real challenges of being in business. And sometimes they are significant life challenges.
Yeah.
And as a consultant, I hear it every day.
Yeah.
It's not just about the business side, it's about life in general. Mm-hmm. It's about family, it's about mental health, it's about so many things that get thrown at us. And that's what I loved about the book, because I was like, wow. Like, I was actually surprised. I'd be reading something and I'm like, oh, wow, I can't believe she shared that. Like, that was just...
Neither can I.
I'm just like, wow. So I would assume the response to the book has been amazing. What has it been like?
Yeah, it has. It's been amazing. I really wanted to lift the curtain or lift the veil, so to speak. I really wanted to expose everything that went, I guess, like in stark contrast to what people thought about me.
Yeah.
And what I tried to pretend to be when I had Triangl and when I first moved back. I didn't want anyone to know what was actually going on, because I felt bad. I felt silly that I'd had all this success, I had all this money, I'd had all this, all these accolades thrown at me and everyone saying, you're amazing and you did this in marketing and this. I felt bad kind of saying, well, actually it was really tough.
Yeah.
Felt like people might think I was ungrateful, or people might think, but that's the reality of life, that I've found so much since then. And that's what women have kept saying to me, is that these things can happen at the same time. We can have all this joy and all this sadness at the same time. Yeah. And it's just been an incredible response. Everyone I wrote every word. So I was like always like very sort of saying, I didn't get a ghostwriter, but like be nice to me because I'm not a writer and I wrote it. So just like let go of any little errors that were in there, the spelling, grammatical, whatever. But I'm really proud of it because it did exactly what I wanted it to do. And it was just to have women feel like they could just, have that feeling of like, good, okay, I don't have to compare myself to her. Yeah. I don't have to, get on this hamster wheel trying to chase money and success, because it actually doesn't really matter if I'm not actually happy inside. That's all I wanted to convey, and I think the book did it really well. So I'm really proud.
It did. It did do it well, and we're so glad that you wrote it.
Oh, thank
I feel
you.
like it should be compulsory for every new startup to read the book.
I know.
And we encourage our audience to definitely go out and get it. Let's talk about your experience as co-founder of such a successful brand.
Yeah.
What took you by surprise through the various stages of growing your business at the time?
Everything. It was, even from the very beginning, when we moved, so we were like, Craig and I, my business partner, we were both living in Melbourne in Australia, and we moved to Hong Kong to start the business. I'd never had a business before, Craig had. So he was leading the way in terms of he'd at least done it and a little bit of what to do. Yeah. I didn't realise how long it would take to actually get a product to market and how much you need to arrange. And that was, 10 years ago, or even longer, it was 12 years ago. It was before all the things that you need to do now. Like I'm starting a brand now and there's so much more to do, It was like, that was really surprising for me. I just didn't realise the amount of legwork that went into doing things, and it felt like you were never actually doing anything. It felt silly. It kind of felt like you were just making decisions, and it was like, oh, this is weird. Like, I feel like I'm pretending to have a business. And then we put the product to market, and I was ready for that because I knew that we wouldn't obviously take off straight away. So that was really we were so fortunate to be in Hong Kong because when we launched the product, and obviously, as it happens with most launches, you don't launch to hundreds of sales, you know. You see the stories that happens, but that's very rare. Most people launch and it's like normal. It's crickets.
Yeah.
It's like one order every couple of days if you're lucky, you know. I knew that was going to happen, and because we were in Hong Kong, we had no expectation. We had no one sort of thinking like, how you going? How you going? How's the business going? So we were able to just build in our own way without anyone actually asking anything of us, which was very relaxing, to be honest. So that was fine. I think the success caught me by surprise, to be honest. The way it took off and the way we found our customers was really surprising to me. We were putting I think, you know, the reason why is because, like I was saying, you put in all this effort and you're nurturing these customers and you're trying to work out different marketing strategies and you're trying to get the product out there and, you know, you're trying to sell the product and you're not really knowing if anyone is interested in it. So when people actually started buying it, we were like, where'd they come from? Like, who has told them about the brand? And how did you, and you want to kind of like ask everybody, but you can't. That was really surprising to see people actually start to like it and to think, gosh, was that because, like, what did we do to get them in, you know? And because I'd worked in fashion before and I'd worked in, you know, for brands before, but I'd never been the direct person that was responsible for the sales. So it felt a lot more thrilling and a lot more surprising. I think I was just didn't expect the joy I would feel every time I got a little PayPal notification. And then all of it after that was a surprise, like all of it, because we never thought the Triangl would become what it did. It was never even in the wildest dream scenario ever, you know, and it grew so quickly for an e-com brand or for any brand. You know, within 6 months, we were selling hundreds of bikinis a day, and within a couple of years, it was thousands. That was just an incredible, insane, mind-boggling experience because we went, you know, we were millionaires within months. And, you know, Craig and I had come from families with, you know, normal, like very middle class. We'd always worked. Like, I'd never ever thought that would just kind of, it felt, and it's silly because of the amount of work that we put into it, but it felt like it kind of fell into our lap a little bit because it just happened so fast. And that was, we didn't know what to do. We'd never had any wealth before. We'd never expected this kind of success before. And you kind of start to think, oh my God, I have to level up really quickly. Like you go from and you're still the same person, but you think, oh my God, I have to now act like a successful businesswoman who has money. And I'm still the same 28, 29-year-old girl that has no idea what she's doing. And that was really confronting, surprising, surreal. Still, when I think of it, it just feels ridiculous because no one would be prepared for that unless no one would, really.
I remember reading in the book that you had to turn off the alerts on your phone. So as a startup, our audience is at various stages of their journey. Some have been in business for 30 years, others have been startups, but we know at the startup stage of that ding, oh, I've got an order. Ding, I've got an order. You might get one a day, maybe you'll get 2 or 3. I remember you were saying it was like a pokey machine. It was ding, 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 ding. And you had to turn the alert off. That's when it really hit me. I'm like, like that's a real, you know, tangible way to think about it. But of course it didn't fall into your lap, as you mentioned. Anyone who will read the book will know that absolutely success did not fall into your laps, neither yours nor Craig. But how did you cope with that success? I remember again reading in the book, you had your family visit you, I believe, and it was quite a surreal experience. You were out on the yacht, all of those things.
Yes.
But there's also a level of guilt and there's all mixed emotions, I would imagine. Yeah. Is there any support? Did you have a mentor at that time, anyone that you could talk to about this new level of success, how to handle it, while still obviously in the trenches of the business? Yeah, no, I had no one. I was so isolated over there, and I mean, we chose to be, and that was an absolute blessing for the business to isolate ourselves like that and allowed us to focus so wholeheartedly on the business and nothing else. But on the flip side, the isolation means that you have no one to talk you down from that ledge. You know, you have no one who's done it before, who's been there before, who knows what it feels like. And I didn't even know that I could access these people. It didn't even enter my thought space that perhaps it might be helpful to find someone who would be able to help me through it and guide me through it. So I did it all alone. And so when you have all this success, and as they say, you know, money makes people funny, and it does. And when we became
uber wealthy and uber successful, you know, within a few years, it changed every single relationship we had with family and friends back home, like every single relationship except for one, because one of Craig's friends had a very successful business here in Melbourne, and he was the only person I knew that was a millionaire. And he was the only one that I remember was just like real chill. Everyone else, they altered the way they were. It was like, you could feel it, you know, and it wasn't always negative. It just felt different. Like, it was like people always would just be kinder to me, and people that I hadn't spoken to for years would just like text me, and like, you know, my family they were amazing, and that, but like, it changes the relationship. Just like I know that if I was sitting in Melbourne and my brother or my sister were overseas in Hong Kong doing that, I would have felt different towards them. Like, it just does. And that was a lot to process. And I wish I'd been able to talk to someone who would have been through that, because every single person now that I talk to that has had that level of, or some level of success, and they've gone from zero to whatever wealth, and they've had, you know, they have the exact same scenario. It's played out that way for everybody on some level. And it was just a lot to go through without ever having anyone to help me work through it and just talk to.
And it's something you don't think of, you know, from the outside looking in. You think, oh, it's successful, they've made it. What a joy life must be.
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
It's not the case.
No. And even when you, and I still get, you know, cautious saying it, because I know people would be listening and hearing and thinking, oh, I'd still want that money though. Like, I'd still want, and it's like, I'm not saying I don't want it. I'm not saying I'm not grateful for it. It's been an incredible blessing in my life, but it has its negatives as well. You know, when you have a lot of money and a lot of success, it changes every single facet of your life, because it has to. It's like when people say, oh, if I got $1 million, I'd be set for life. And it's like, you would if your lifestyle stayed exactly the same. Yeah. But most people who would get $1 million, their lifestyle would change, because they would think, oh, I'm going to change it now. Yeah. And that's when the problems happen, because that's when you might like spend too much, or you might end up abandoning your identity because you're trying to move into a different group of friends or a different group of like where you go and what you do. And that's where it becomes really complex in terms of trying to work out, wait, who am I? How do I fit in here anymore?
And so as a mentor, is this something that you're going to share with your clients, or what advice could we give to our audience? So anyone who's growing their business and, you know, acquiring wealth and building and succeeding, and perhaps they are feeling a little lost and not really sure how to navigate this terrain. What advice would you give?
I would absolutely find support. You know, find someone to talk to about it. Find someone who, you know, don't go too, like, I always say when you're trying to find a mentor, you're trying to find someone to connect with, don't just go after like one person. Like, go to like a bunch of people, because sometimes I get contacted by someone and they'll want to catch up for a coffee and I just do not have time. Whereas other times I'm like, you know what, fine, tomorrow let's do it. You know, so it's like, don't not contact anyone, but also make sure that you contact a few. But definitely just find someone to talk to. You know, find the resources that will help you, and know that it is okay to feel conflicted in a negative way about the wealth and success that you're amassing. Like, that is what got me into trouble, because I was like, no, I have to be happy. I have to be happier than ever. Have to be. And like, I can't let anybody know that I'm feeling anything other than that, because that means I'm not grateful. That means that I'm just being like, you know, like a little brat. Like, I just have to. And so I internalized everything. So knowing that it's very normal to feel that way, and also kind of knowing that this wealth and success, you know, commercial success that you're having, it might not be the thing that fulfills you, and that is going to be something that you have to investigate and actually look at. And that's why I think the personal development, self-development side is so important as well. Like, talk to some professionals, start to work on that side of things, because if you don't do that, you're going to expect that money and success makes you happy. And that's the biggest trick of all, because it doesn't. You know, if you don't have any sense of self-worth or that love for yourself, it doesn't matter what happens outside of you. So that would be my advice, is to really start to go on that journey really quickly. I actually think that everyone should be on that journey, even in a startup phase and some level, because the challenges you face, the way your flaws are magnetized and highlighted in a business is incredible. Like I still do it now. I'll sit there now and think, oh my God, I actually don't know what I'm good at. Like you have those moments where you're like, I'm good at, it's usually when you're sitting with someone who's absolutely incredible in their specific niche field. And I'm a bit more of an all-rounder, I think, about quite a few things. And I just sit there going, I don't have a skill. Like you have those moments, but you kind of have to go, no, I do have a skill. I have my talents. I just know that it's not that, you know, and I fall into that trap now. And I'm a very self-assured, 39-year-old who knows her place in the world. And I still sometimes think, oh my God, I'm useless. Like, what am I doing with my life? So it's knowing that those feelings are also normal to feel at times. Just try and not sit with them for too long.
Imposter syndrome. It's real,
Oh my
right?
God, it's so real. It's so real.
It's real. We're going to definitely dive into the personal and professional development because I love everything about what you've done during your healing journey. But let's touch on the exit phase, the Triangl.
Yeah.
Because no doubt there would be a big part of your persona that was attached to the business. Yeah. And you've experienced the highs, the lows, but at the end of the day, that was your baby. Yeah. And you decided to exit the business. What was that experience like for you?
It was pretty tough. Craig and I separated romantically when I was 9 months pregnant with our second. And that kind of got the ball rolling on, well, what are we going to do with Triangl? Because this will have to be some separation of the business at some point. So after we separated, and that was quite mutual and amicable and it was fine, and then we were sort of just continuing to keep things going for a few months, and then we sat down and had the conversation, like, what are we going to do? And Craig had a lot of other interests at the time anyway, whereas I didn't, because I was Triangl and Oscar and I was pregnant, so it was just motherhood and the business. So I actually I was planning to take Triangl over on my own. And that was very exciting. I was thrilled by that idea. The only problem was I had a 2-week-old newborn and a 2.5-year-old, and I was probably biting off more than I could chew. But I went into that head first, really excited, and thought that would happen. And that was, a whole other story of how that all evolved. It ended up, after a few months, I realised that I didn't want to do it anymore. It was a combination of a bunch of different things. I wanted to move to the States. I wanted to move to New York and set up Triangl there, but it was actually very hard for me to do so and not bring Triangl's entire profits into, because we'd set up a very, very, very advantageous, profitable tax scenario with Triangl. And me living in the US would mean that all of Triangl would have to be taxed in the US, which was obviously just going to be at a huge, huge loss to the business. So it was just a huge decision that I wasn't prepared to make at the time. I just didn't know if it was the right decision to make. I didn't know, when you go from 0% tax to suddenly 20% tax, it was like, wait, is this smart? Will I get 20% more sales being in the US myself? Does that matter? Why? That was a lot for someone that's, still dealing with 2 young children and on her own and dealing with the grief from a separation and from a partner and facing the world alone. It was just a lot. So there was that, and then Craig was also getting back involved in the business because he was trying to be helpful, but I was very adamant that I didn't want him in it in any way, shape or form. And so I just made the call to exit completely. I just wanted out. And I remember we sat down in London because that was kind of a neutral spot for us. It was in this terrible meeting room, this dingy meeting room in Soho. It was like a club. And we just wrote down on paper what we thought our assets were. It was very casual because it had just been Craig and I. There was no other investment. There wasn't anyone else that was in the business. Everything was kind of done like that. So we wrote down all of our assets, what we assumed the business was valued at. We never got a valuation. And the valuation was really low now that I think about it at the time. And then all our other assets that we had at the time. And we just kind of, drew a line down and, 50-50. And then Craig wanted a little bit more than 50 just as an acknowledgement of the fact that he did a lot more in the original setup. And I was just like, whatever. Because I also just wanted cash. So I was happy to accept slightly less percentage because I wanted cash. Then we drew up a deal. I kind of we wrote that what the number would be, and I walked out of the meeting thinking I'd be free as a bird and this is it. My new life starts today, and it absolutely doesn't. We had to go through all the legal scenarios, drawing up the contracts, checking over the contracts. I didn't actually get my own lawyer because I was advised not to by a few other people in a different team, which it's a whole other story. And I was really naive. I On one hand, it upsets me when I think about it. On the other hand, I'm really proud that I did it that way because it's always been what's kept Craig and I amicable in some ways. There was lots of periods where we weren't, but we are good friends now. And I do think that we always tried to avoided scenarios where we would end up hating each other. That was kind of the reason why we both didn't get lawyers, but we drew up a contract, so it was kind of silly. Anyway, he ended up defaulting on that agreement anyway a few months later. So exits are really complicated, no matter how well-intentioned they are at the start. And mine was particularly complex because it was my fiance. And that makes it really hard. And we had children. And that made it really hard because I wanted to move back to Australia. He wanted me to stay in Monaco. And it was just a really messy, it was 4 years. We only settled in 2022.
It's a long time.
Yeah, and that's, I remember a few friends of mine had been through situations, one in particular who was a girl in Melbourne, and she said to me, this is going to drag on for a really long time. And I was like, no, it's not. No, we're good. It's fine. Like, the agreement's this, and he's going to pay me this. And she's like, you'll see. And it happened exactly like that. Exits are rarely done and dusted and straightforward and easy. It's always, it becomes a bit of a push and pull, a bit of a fight because, you question everything that happened during the business. And even the fact that Craig and I were 50-50 made no difference in terms of how much we fought over, because we had different expectations of the valuation and like understandings of it, and the valuation was like up here at one point and then down there, and it was just like, it was he said, she said, really, really hard. But we've gotten through it now, and we settled and we've moved forward, and I'm at a place now where I'm able to look back at the business and be really proud of what I did. And that's what I wanted the most. So I'm really glad that I got to that point. But it did feel like for a while there that I was going to really hate Triangl for the rest of my life.
The return on resilience, right?
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah.
So 4 years, that is a long time.
Yeah.
But you talk about going on your healing journey.
Yes.
So how were you feeling mentally, physically, spiritually towards when you exited?
Yeah.
Because then it's like a new phase. It's like, what do I do now?
Yes.
And you've spoken openly about your healing journey and what you've done, the modalities that you've kind of used.
Yeah.
Can you share a bit of that experience with our audience? Because again, we don't talk about exits. In business, it's the highlights reel.
Yeah.
So it is very rare that we get to talk about what happens when you do exit a business.
Well, it's funny because I find that people often like to start a business these days with a plan to exit. And I'm like, why would you plan to exit? It's a horrible experience. Don't exit. People have this really glamorized idea of the exit. Like it's this beautiful scenario of getting a check and suddenly you're a millionaire. And I'm like, it's not a fun, I don't know truly anyone that I've spoken to. I'm sure there's people out there, but no one has said it's been enjoyable. But all these people are starting these businesses now with this plan to exit. It's my plan. And I'm going to do this next. I'm like, why can't you just start something that you want to have forever? Why can't that be the goal? Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But when I exited, I was definitely at my absolute lowest because I assumed that the exit would bring a lot of freedom and joy into my life just by default because it would mean that my life is open again to do whatever I want. And I found that was when I realised that the business wasn't the problem, Craig wasn't the problem, being a working mother wasn't the problem. I was the problem in my life. I was the one that was letting myself down because I just had done no work on myself to understand anything about who I was. And I'd abandoned that little inner voice for years that was trying to tell me all these different things, to slow down, to take care of yourself, to stop being so negatively geared, to stop I was sitting in fight or flight for 7 years, constant. I see those women now and it physically makes me feel a certain way because I know what that feels like to just be so chaotic in your mind that it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you are or who you're talking to or what's going on, you cannot turn that off. That was the state that I was in. So I had a lot of work that I needed to do. And that happened at the same time as a million other things. It wasn't like I went on this beautiful sabbatical healing journey. I had 2 children. I was a single mother. I didn't know who I was. I was hanging out with the wrong crowd in Melbourne. I was partying a lot. I was going through an awful separation settlement situation with my ex. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know if I'd ever get any money because Craig had defaulted. So I was a millionaire on paper and no money in the bank in reality, trying to pretend that wasn't actually my life. Yeah. All these things. And at the same time of all of that going on, I was actually going and doing the work on myself, because that's what has to happen. It's like, I think a lot of people are like waiting for that beautiful moment to start their journey, but you have to start it in the middle of the chaos. Yeah. Like that's when you need to start it, when you're actually still doing all the crap that you know you shouldn't be doing. And you're probably still going to keep doing all these negative, toxic things whilst you're on that healing journey. They kind of happen at the same time. And at some point, hopefully, if you keep consistent, the consistent healing work, spiritual, self-development work, the toxic bad stuff slows down and starts to fall away. That's what happened to me. But it took it was a couple of years before I really started to see the change in myself and also really realize the things that didn't serve me. Whereas now I'm like, they're like falling off even still to this day, those things where I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I don't think like that anymore. Or I don't talk like that, or I don't do that to myself, or all of those things. Yeah. But that's like a really long time of working on it.
I love the way you articulated that there's still going to be some toxic things going on.
Oh yeah.
While you're on your healing journey, because there's this assumption again, outside looking in. Yeah. It's like there's like a line in the sand. All the bad's fallen away, all the good's come in, and it's happy days.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm still going through it. Like I still do things and act in certain ways where I'm like, oh nah, that's not really my best mate. Yeah. And I just learn from that. I learn from that quicker now because of all the work that I've done. Yeah. So I'm able to kind of pick myself up again. I know myself now well enough. Yeah. But at the start, like I was doing all these modalities, kinesiology, Reiki, therapy, all different, like anything. I was just doing absolutely like, what's the one where you go into like, the other one? Hypnotherapy. Yeah, I was doing that, like everything. Yeah. I was still going out and partying till 4 a.m. Yeah. And in the middle of it, because that's just how life works, And at some point, I eventually realized that this going out partying till 4 a.m. doesn't serve me, and that it actually doesn't make me feel good. And then you start to realize how good you can feel without any of these things. And that's when the shift really starts to happen. Like you wake up in the morning and you're like, I feel great. Yeah. Like at the moment, I'm trying to completely get off any kind of caffeine. Yeah. That's where I've abandoned all the partying and the drinking, and now I'm like, what other things can I do to optimize my life? I'm like, I want to just be so energetic that I don't even have caffeine to have that energy. It's like so boring.
That's a good place to be.
It's a good place to be. I'm really trying to get there. It's my goal for this year.
There's a lot that comes before that, right?
Yeah.
So were there any specific, you mentioned a few modalities there. Were there any that were really like transformational for you? So for those who are listening, perhaps they're looking for a place to start.
Yes.
Like where did you start? Was it with a kinesiologist? Was it with a therapist? Like what are kind of the fundamentals of just gaining some traction?
Yes.
To be able to feel like, okay, I'm in safe hands.
Yeah.
And this is actually doable.
Yes.
Because I think that is the biggest thing to overcome.
Yeah.
Till you start to feel good. Like you're saying, you're feeling so good now. You're like, right, now it's caffeine that's going.
Yeah.
But until you get a taste of feeling good, it's very difficult to gain momentum.
Yeah, 100%. So the first two things that I did were psychologist or a psychologist and a kinesiologist. Yeah. And they were like chalk and cheese for me. The psychologist, I feel, and this is my experience, so I'm not, I'm sure some people have incredible psychologists, but I found that my psychologist just highlighted all my problems and then sent me on my way. I was like, you've made me feel worse. Okay, great. Whereas my kinesiologist, there's this certain thing about spirituality that I love and I really needed at the time, and I relied on this so heavily for the first few years especially, was to feel like I was being guided through life, to feel like I was having my hand held almost, and that everything was how it was supposed to be. Even all the crap that I'd gone through, all the stuff that I was going through was actually all happening for the right reason. And I found so much comfort in that in terms of letting go. Yeah. Like I felt like, I don't have to actually worry too much about this right now. Because at the start I wanted to surrender to whatever I was doing. I needed to just go in, be honest, and just like, this is where I'm at, And I felt like I could do that with kinesiology because it felt so practical to me. I would go in, it is basically therapy. My kinesiologists all work a little differently, but my kinesiologist, who is still mine to this day, we sit down together and we talk for the first sort of 10, 15 minutes, and then we get on the table and we do the muscle testing. And basically what it is you have these meridian lines in your body and there are blockages in them, and they're blockages through past traumas, through things you're going through, and you need to clear them to be able to feel good, essentially. And I had so many blockages, and the thing is, you clear one and another one comes through, and you clear one and another one comes through. I did a kinesiology balance yesterday, and I still had 2 meridian lines that were out of balance. Yeah. So that all, it's not like I'm walking around completely balanced all the time. There's 14, so only 2 at being out is pretty good. Pretty good. But it's this constant learning for me that I found. I was so interested in it, and I was learning so much about myself, and it made so much sense. Like, you'd sit there, and Janelle, who's my kinesiologist, who's one of my best friends now, she would be like, okay, so I'm picking up like something about, she's like, it's about your sister, and like, you'd be able to kind of pinpoint exactly why that was coming up. It's almost like you were able to go, oh, this makes sense to me. Like, I know what you're going to say about this, and at the start, she'd be telling me all these things, and a lot of them I wasn't ready to put into action. It was kind of like, stop partying so much, you're hanging out with toxic people, but I wasn't ready to kind of put that into action yet. But I would kind of walk away going, oh God, I know I've got to do that now. And it would kind of be niggly. You'd be like, ugh. And I used to want to cancel, I used to not want to go, but I would always show up for my balances. And it was just the consistency of that I started to see a change. It was for the first thing that I noticed changing was my reactions were different in scenarios. I started to feel safer. I guess I was stepping out of the fight or flight response. So when someone would say something, and it might have usually like triggered me to get really angry or me to get really like hysterical, I'd actually kind of just be a little bit more indifferent in my response. And those were the times I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, I'm changing. Yeah. And you're not even changing, you're just coming back to yourself, because all these things that are layered on are just these patterns and programs that we've learned. And that kinesiology is I just think it is transformative. It is also probably the one modality that has, or for me anyway, has the most explanation to it on a scientific level as well. It's not completely woo-woo. It still has its foundational. Kinesiologists I think they train for a year, and they're just really good people. They know what they're doing. And it's profound, a lot of the things that, a friend of mine just had her 2-year-old son, have a balance because he couldn't sleep, and had the most incredible experience with him, and he's now sleeping like a dream. It is really profound what it can do to people. I just love it. I'm the biggest advocate for it. I'm obsessed.
Well, that's amazing. As you said, as you started to feel better and better, that becomes the addiction, doesn't it? It's okay, now I'm not going partying. I'm actually going to kinesiology in the morning because I know I'm going to get more out of that.
Yeah, and you start to actually make those connections of like, oh, I feel better if I just go to bed and sleep. And you don't have the attachment to this like identity of you that's like, I need to go out and party, and I need to drink to unwind, or I need to like take drugs to like feel a certain way. You actually start to realize that all those feelings, you actually feel better. It takes a while though, you know, and we all have our things. Like some people it's food, and some people it's smoking, but like you actually have to it's like the stepped out process of kind of like, oh, I shouldn't go out, and then I'm not going to, and then you're like, oh, I don't actually do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I love how you talk about doing the work as you define it.
Yeah.
And I just think, as you mentioned earlier, this is not something, that kind of kicks in 10 years into business. You should be practicing these things from the start.
Yes.
Because they are the support mechanisms.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was listening to another podcast this morning, and this entrepreneur was talking about his SWAT team. And his SWAT team is his kinesiologist, his acupuncturist, his therapist, and the list goes on.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, it keeps growing. Yeah. I have the biggest circle of people that support me. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
There's all these tools in the toolbox.
Oh, so many. Yeah. So many. Yeah.
Love it. So do the work, everyone.
Yeah,
Very important.
Yeah.
Erin, let's switch channels a little bit now. Let's talk about doing business now in 2024.
Yeah.
I know you're embarking on your own. We'd love to hear what you're doing.
Yeah.
But let's share with our audience your point of view on how doing business in 2024 is different when you were growing Triangl between 2012 and 2018.
Yeah, it's so different now. It's evolved. It's harder. I feel personally that when we started Triangl, it was kind of like you could just come up with a product or an idea and you could just do it.
Yeah.
You didn't have to worry too much about what your values were and what your intention for the business was and what you wanted to do with it. You could just do it.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it's every consumer category is saturated. It's very rare you see cut through where you're like, oh my God, No one's thought of that before. Everything's like already been done a million times over. I mean, I'm launching a fashion brand with women's apparel. It's been done. You know, like there's nothing new here. So you have to really access what you're doing and why you're doing it. Truly, you can't. And like all these people, like back with the you know, you could have back then said, I just want to make a couple of $1 million, and like it was fine. No one cared. It was you could make it. Like it wasn't. There was no spotlight on you. It didn't matter. Whereas now, people want to know who they're buying from. They want to know why they're buying from you. They want to understand what you're doing with that money. Like you know, like it is everyone is like wanting to poke holes in every little thing, which is great. I love that because I think that should happen. I think there should be that transparency as a consumer to kind of go like, I want to know who you are and why I'm buying from you to an extent, you know. So as a brand and as a founder, having that intention and having that integrity behind why you're doing it. Like I've heard people recently say things like, I'm starting a business and I wanted to make a couple of $1 million and I'll exit in 3 years. And I'm like, not that I wish bad on anyone, but I'm like, gee, I hope you learn some things in that process because why? Like why? You know, and like, why would you do that to your customer? And how are you going to trick them into wanting to support you? Like, what are you going to put out there that's got the wrong intention and this bad integrity behind it because you just want to make money off them?
Yeah.
You know, and I think in 2024, if you really want to start something, you need to really have that passion and have it attached to something actually worthy. You know, it's okay to want to make money. That's fine. I'm not starting this business to not make, I mean, my gosh, it has to make money. I mean, I've spent already a lot. I need to make that back. You know, that's fine. It's fine to want wealth and to have an understanding of why you want that wealth. For me, it's to maintain a lifestyle that I'm accustomed to. And I'm happy to say that. I'm free to say that. But I would never do that as my only why. You know, I would never do that and trick the customer into just making me rich because there's going to be some karma if that's your only attitude. And I think that it's lovely to see that that is sort of being weeded out a little bit. You know, and I think the founder why is really important. And I think it's really beautiful. I think it's allowing for us to really niche what we're buying and why. And like, for example, I was looking yesterday at mouth tape because we're talking about it in the office with the girls. And I was like, I want to buy some. And so I'm looking online at where to buy it and I'm looking at a place and I wanted to find someone to support, you know, and I think that's a shift. That would never have happened 10 years ago. You wouldn't have cared. You would have just gone to find it at a cheap price and whatever. Whereas now we're starting to think, okay, like who am I going to pick here to buy from?
You're going to have to share with our audience what mouth tape is for now.
I know. Okay, so mouth tape is... It's to breathe through your nose at night. So when you breathe through your mouth, it has a whole bunch of health issues and it can actually change the shape of your face, can give you bad breath. It just can make you snort, just all these things. It's like and it's very easy to just put mouth tape on. I'm very mindful of breathing through my nose. But at night, you don't know, you can't be mindful. You have no idea. So this is a way to be really sure that you're breathing through your nose at night. And you actually wake up feeling a lot more rested. You get a better sleep. It's just a lot better for you.
Another tool for optimization.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an easy one.
Love it. All right, back to the business. Okay, so can you share, I couldn't agree more, the why, brands with purpose. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you share anything about your what's your why for your new business?
Yeah.
And is there anything around your fashion brand that you can share with us?
Yes. So I always said after Triangl I would never have another brand. I swore black and blue. Like people would say no, ever, never. Yeah. And then funnily last year I was doing my book tour and I was doing a lot of press around the book and I was at the time starting to feel a little itch to do something. So I was like, I'm just going to make some samples maybe for some clothes that I want to wear, just for me to wear. That was all I wanted to do. That was it. Very simple. I sat down with Patty Huntington from Harper's Bazaar, obviously fashion magazine, and we'll talk about the book. And she was like, so, we're talking, a lot of the way into the conversation. And she was like, Erin, you're so passionate about business and about fashion. Like it comes through your veins, it's like right there. She's like, are you sure you're not going to start another business? Like, are you sure you don't want to? And I said, well, Patty, I actually am thinking that maybe I might be ready soon. That's pretty much all I said. And they ran with that as their headline for the article was Erin Deering is launching a new fashion line next spring. And I was like, all right, that feels good. That actually feels really, really good. I'm so hardcore obsessed with fashion. It is it's the greatest material joy in my life, aside from my kids and my husband and family. It is my greatest joy in my life. I think about it all day long, what to wear, how to wear it, why do I want to wear it. It just makes me happy. And so I was like, I always felt like I wanted to be dismissive of that a little bit. I was like, no, I'm a serious businesswoman now. I'm going to do more serious things, and I want to help women and all these great virtuous things. And then I was like, but I just can't hide how much I love fashion. And the thing is, I believe so wholeheartedly in the power of personal style and the power of dressing well and taking that time and valuing yourself to put an outfit together. Yeah. It doesn't have to be full on like how I dress. I'm pretty up there with the outfits that I put together. I live for it. But even just, styling an outfit and wearing something can change your mood so much. So I really wanted to just make pieces that encouraged women to feel better and to really allow them to wear these pieces and value themselves enough to just put simple things that go together, that have a little bit of polish, a little bit of flair. I'm doing stuff that's got, colour, print, texture, a lot of little added design details. It's nothing that's basic. Nothing. It's like there's a lot of simple looks and brands out there at the moment. I want to bring a little more fun, but still in a very polished way. It's very much an extension of my personal style because selfishly, I just want to make pieces that I want to wear. And I really, really believe in the power of it all. And I just know how transformative it can be to simple things. It doesn't even have to be my brand. If women just start to think, I'm going to put this earring on today. Like I'm going to change out of my leggings and I'm going to put these jeans on and just have those pieces that aren't just too simple but are still styled enough. And that's really why I wanted to start a business, is to sort of it brings me so much joy and happiness that I'm like, this is probably the easiest way for me to give other people joy and happiness, because I love it so much that hopefully some people will feel how much I love it and they'll love it too.
And is it going to be your namesake label?
We'll see. We'll see.
You'll be launching, you'll be announcing
in September. I'm launching in September, so
Yeah.
I'll probably announce it all in the next few months.
Yes.
I've got a pretty great team of women. It's kind of one of those. Janelle, my kinesiologist, used to always say to me at the beginning of my healing journey, your vibe attracts your tribe. It's very and I have now the most incredible women in my team. I can't believe how fortunate I've been to find them.
Yeah.
And they're just incredible. And I am so excited. It's like almost this powerful group of women that I have with me is almost the highlight even over what we're doing, because it just feels so incredible. Yeah. Like we're all older. We all we've all worked in fashion. We all have the same interests. Yeah. It's really special. It's really special. So I feel like hopefully we're going to make some really incredible pieces. And
how exciting.
Yeah. It's mid-price point as well. Yeah. So it's nothing, obviously. I'm not interested in putting myself into a luxury I just silly. Because the luxury brands do it well. So why would I put myself into a price point that limits, most of my followers and people that would want to wear the brand? I get that a lot is because I wear a lot of designer. And I get women a lot saying I love what you wear, but I can't buy that. So what else have you got for me? And I'm like, you know what? I've got some stuff for you. I will have some stuff for you. So it'll be entry levels around 200 to 300 through to, I don't think anything for a while will be over $1,000. Yeah. It's still at that price point to not be fast fashion, because again, I really want to educate the consumer into thinking a little bit before we buy things. How's that going to show up in my wardrobe? Am I going to want to wear that a lot? Or is that going to be something that I bought for $70 that I'm going to wear 3 times and throw out? Yeah. And I know some people can't afford more than Zara, but I've got a customer, hopefully, and I'm trying to find a customer that sees the value in spending that mid-price point, knowing that they'll get good wear out of it.
Investment pieces, longevity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Online only?
Online only. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I find wholesale a whole other business. Yeah. And I didn't want to put myself in that position. I really wanted to perfect the styles, perfect the fit, perfect everything, because if we did wholesale and we took orders on, and this is something that I think is a lot of people don't kind of think about, because wholesale seems easier, right? Like it's good for marketing, it could make you more money. Yeah. It's kind of like, why not? Why not? But the thing is, if you have to meet a deadline, you might not be able to get your styles perfect. You might only be able to do 2 fit samples. I can do 10 fit samples and I can put the product out when I want. And that means I put the best product out to my customer. That just is very straightforward to me, is what I want to do.
Especially in the early days,
when
you're launching and you're establishing new supply chain partners and it's a new brand.
Yep.
How does it feel I'm assuming you're working on your marketing and launch plans at the moment. How does it feel now working towards giving birth to this new
Oh my God,
new brand.
it's so surreal. I am so excited. I can't even process what it's going to feel like to have it. And then I'm also kind of on the flip side thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get so obsessed. Like I need to make sure I have healthy boundaries in place because I have 4 children. So I am not going to be able to work 20 hours a day like I did at Triangl. Also, that is really exhausting. So I don't advocate for that for more than it's, you know, in a season you can do it if you can. But for me, I definitely can't. Like I might work again when the kids go to bed for a little while. But I'm just extremely excited to be and to put something out there that like it's fashion. It's truly an extension of who I am, and I can't wait to put it out and then start to work on it because that's the thing, right? This is all fun. This bit's so easy, really. It's like blue sky everywhere. Like I'm going to make this and they're going to love it and it's going to sell out and this is our strategy. And then you put the product to market and you're like, whoa, okay, great. So nothing that I thought was going to happen's happened and now the hard work begins. So I'm ready for that because I know that'll be very different to Triangl. You know, Triangl was a unicorn business. We had growth immediately and very quickly. I think that is really rare. I would love for that to happen with this brand, but I'm absolutely prepared for it to be a slower burn as well.
Are you going to be connected? Are you going to be on the front line connecting with the audience? Are you going to be the face of your business?
Not really. So I will be through my platforms, but the brand will stand alone. Okay. I think that I'm not against founder-faced, founder-led brands like that. I just feel that when it comes to fashion and when it comes to letting the brand have its voice, find its customer, I think it's a pretty risky to just have it all be about me. I've seen brands do really well where like the founders in the campaigns, the founders everything, that's not really my vibe. I also find that it's probably not sustainable. If I'm at the front in that way, I might get a bit burnt out quicker. And I have to protect myself a little bit. We'll see though, because it might be hard to not want to show up on there. But I do have so many amazing creatives who can be the brand for me at different times as well. And then hopefully open it up to a lot of different customers so we're not too singular. Because I don't want it to be so much about me that if you aren't really feeling like, I don't look like Erin or I'm not dressed like her and I'm not really as far, out there as her, then you might not feel like you're aligned with the brand. So I want to make sure that I cover all of the bases.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but my own it will be all about my brand. It'll be all like, and there might be a little bit of crossover occasionally, but we'll see. I mean, Triangl, we did it all behind the scenes and I really liked that. As much as I love being front facing with some things, I actually do quite like staying behind the scenes with that. I'll be the one packing all the orders for as long as I can. I will be in the warehouse doing everything. So that customer care is probably my biggest passion. So I'll be on the emails, I'll be on the Instagram, like that'll be me, but I won't be as much like in front of the camera.
Well, we can't wait till September. Watch this space, everyone. So now that you're experiencing all of this again, we touched on personal development and support systems.
Yes.
So can we share with our audience, what is a day in the life of Erin Deering like now? So what are your non-negotiables? What are your routines? What happens when you wake up? And everything in between.
Okay, so I wake up usually around 5:30 and I go straight to training. So I train 5-6 days a week. That's my husband does it as well. Our nanny comes really early in the morning, blessed, she's amazing. And so we head off and do our separate training first thing. It's like our non-negotiable. So then I'm back home at sort of 7 a.m. and then we get the kids to school. So I usually, depending on what I've got on in the morning, I either get ready while they're kind of having their breakfast or I'll be out with them while they're getting ready in the morning and spending that time with them as well. Then we all go to school together. So 3 of them all go to the same school. So we all walk down together. And then I start my day after that. So usually it's 9:30. I see a chiropractor at the moment. So that's a big part of my wellness routine. I have scoliosis and I've neglected that completely. So we're doing a lot of intense treatment on that, which has been amazing. I feel so good. That's probably one of my top recommendations at the moment. If you don't see a chiro, it's truly been transformative for my body. So I do that twice a week. Then I get into the office and I try and sort of stay in the office for as much as possible because I haven't worked. I've actually not worked in an office since like pre-Triangl. And for the last 4 years, I have only worked freelance and consulting and advisory. So I've worked from home. I've been traveling. So I've got to get my head around going into the office and actually having a clear day to do it, because I have a lot of wellness things that I do. So for me, I'm like, hang on, I need to now schedule these different. So my days at the moment are still, I might, like yesterday I had a balance. I've got a lymphatic drainage today, and then I've got nothing else for the rest of the week, just going into the office. And then I usually leave it, depending on what we're doing, between 4 and 5. If I leave at 4 o'clock, it's usually to go and see the kids do some after school thing, or see them at the park, or I'll just meet them at home.
Yeah.
And then it's just no work after that. It's sort of dinner, hang out with the kids, help them with their homework, get them into bed. It's a bit of a process when there's 4.
Yes,
it's like all hands on deck.
I bet.
And then when they go to bed, I go straight to bed. The one other thing that I do at night at the moment that is another one of my huge new obsessions is a yoga pose where you basically put your legs up against the wall for 20 minutes a night. It has been so incredible for my quality of sleep. It's 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. I usually do an LED face mask at the same time, and that has been unbelievable. I like literally turn around and lie down, and I'm a baby. I feel it reduces inflammation physically, which is great. But what I find for me that's the most helpful is it completely regulates your nervous system. It like gets all the blood flowing back again through your body, and you just feel so calm, and I just fall asleep like that.
That's exactly what I thought when you were sharing that. I'm like, I could just even feel my nervous system dropping.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, sounds very nurturing.
It is beautiful. It is truly. I've seen so many people do it and never really kind of, when you hear people say it's amazing, and everyone says that now, so you just take it with a grain of salt. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's free. And you can do it at night while you're doing a little face mask, or you can just, sit on, you can meditate if you want. That's been amazing. And then I'm in bed at sort of, we try to get to bed as early as possible. So it's usually 9 to 9:30.
Yeah. What's your relationship with your phone like? I heard you say on one of your podcasts that, we've just got to deal with being addicted.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who will, delete the Instagram app or turn the phone off at 7:30.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is the way I do business, and I'll just deal with it.
Yeah, I'm just deal with it. I used to see my screen time and kind of be like, ooh, got to get that lower. And now I'm like, well, it just is what it is, and it's our generation's hooked. It's not going to change. And the younger generation will be the certain way, and then the younger generation will hopefully come through and be like, we don't want to do this all the time, because they're watching their parents do this all the time. I'm really mindful of it now, because it's obviously affected my scoliosis a lot to be looking down. So I now, if I'm like on my phone walking, I'm like doing like head up, like holding my phone up at my face.
Yes.
I don't really limit it, other than I will keep off it at home at night when I get home, and in the morning I try and leave it down the other end of the house and just forget about it. Sometimes that doesn't work. Like last night I was doing a few emails while the kids were all playing outside, and then you kind of think, oh God, I've got to put my phone down. I'm missing this. They're all having fun on the trampoline, So that still happens.
We've got to have boundaries, but we've got to be realistic about it as well.
Yeah, be realistic.
Most of our business is done.
Exactly. And I think it's I think I've got a pretty healthy balance with it now. I only use it for the same few things that I use it for. I'm not mindlessly scrolling Instagram or TikTok. And if I do a little bit of Instagram at the moment, I've got a really strong food algorithm at the moment. And I'm loving that. I'm like, it's great. A little 5 minute, just like watching some food.
Some amazing insights there. So many golden nuggets for our audience to take away. Erin, for those who are thinking, oh my gosh, she seems to have it all, like she's got it all sorted. You're starting a new business with your label. You've got your routine down pat. If they're sitting there thinking, can you actually have it all? Can you have it all?
I feel like I have it all at the moment, and I feel that that's just because it's a state of mind. I feel so intact as a person, and my love for myself is so deep that I feel like I have it all. And that comes before me thinking about what I actually physically have around me. And that's something that I've worked really hard on, and that I'm really working hard on to keep and protect and hold. So yeah, I do feel like you can have it all, because have it all is not the car, the house, the money, the kids, the family, the husband. For me, it's actually waking up in the morning and being like, my God, I love my life. Like I have moments where I feel so grateful. It is this overwhelming physical feeling in my body, where I was that person that 5 years ago had to think, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for coffee. I'm grateful. Like I didn't feel grateful, you know? And so I really do think if you put that work in that feels impossible at the start, and I was that person that felt that purpose, passion I was like, I'm the one that didn't get those when God handed them out or whoever handed them out. I'm broken. I genuinely believed that with like every inch of my body, that I just was never going to find my purpose. And now I know what that is, and I know I have passion, and I'm grateful every single day for everything that I am, you know, and that is why I think that I do have it all, and where I think people can have it all, because it is something internal, not external.
Erin, what a beautiful place to be, and well-deserved, based on everything you've been through and everything you've achieved. Well-deserved.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you for spending time with me today.
Pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations again on the book, and we cannot wait to share that with our audience, and can't wait to see your brand launch in September.
Oh, I know. Thank you. I'm excited too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast. We'd love to keep connected. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Fashion Equipped. Head to our website, fashionequipped.com.au. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with others, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Let's do this together. Let's make the fashion business your business.